Ravaging floods in Nepal leave a devastating trail of death and destruction. Nepali authorities confirm that over 350 people are killed, even as hundreds remain missing. A new lake formed by the flash floods also threatens to burst, prompting authorities to urge residents and rescuers to stay away from riverbanks amid fears of further devastation.
Meanwhile, search and rescue operations continue in full force. Ministry of External Affairs confirms 54 Indian nationals have been rescued so far, while nearly 290 remain untraceable. Indian government also sends a second tranche of relief supplies in a military transport aircraft to Nepal.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to embark on his two-nation visit to Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan this weekend, where he is slated to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Kyrgyzstan's capital, Bishkek. Modi also is expected to hold talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin on the sidelines of the summit.
Yet another day of losses on Dalal Street, with Nifty slipping below 24,100 as PSU banks and metal stocks lead the sell-off. Broader markets too fall in line with the benchmark indices.
HDFC Bank mulls challenging NCLT order which approves a repayment plan that grants the SL Group founder Subhash Chandra a 99.97% haircut on claims of over 22,000 crore rupees. HDFC Bank is likely to move an NCLAT against the NCLT ruling soon.
A major setback coming in for the Mumbai infra upgrade. Metro Line 7A connecting Andheri East and Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport may face demolition due to a design flaw. The issue may further delay the metro corridor, which was originally slated to open in 2021.
The S&P retains India's sovereign ratings at BBBA2 with a stable outlook on the back of a strong growth dynamic and policy stability. However, the global agency warns that fiscal weaknesses remain an Achilles heel in India's sovereign rating profile.
Mixed trade on Wall Street as Nasdaq races ahead on the back of stellar earnings by Nvidia, while Dow stays flat with negative bias in early trade. Meanwhile, weekly jobless claims filings fall for second week in a row.
Six months after US-Israeli forces begin strikes in Iran, the war is at a stalemate even as Washington threatens to cripple Tehran's economy. Meanwhile, Iran and Oman agree on a temporary route to keep the Strait of Hormuz open.
Hello and welcome to India Tonight. I'm Shibani Gharat joining you from Mumbai. Joining us from Chennai is my colleague Jude Sanit. And as we know, the flash floods have ravaged Nepal and left a trail of destruction. As per the latest information from the authorities, 359 people have died in the tragedy. At least 800 have been reported missing, of which 285 are Indians. Homes, buildings, bridges, roads, hydropower projects have been washed away. The scale of destruction is unimaginable. But what led to this tragedy? That is something that we are discussing on India Tonight. Now, there have been many initial assessments, Jude. In fact, experts have, and we have experts' comments also coming in.
Experts and these initial assessments that we've had the opportunity to look over, it was a glacial lake outburst flood. In fact, glacial lakes, for those who may not fully understand it, can expand as glaciers retreat and melted water then accumulates. In fact, landslides and glacier collapses triggered by an avalanche can then cause a breach, sending both water and debris rapidly downstream, which is pretty much along similar lines, we're told, in terms of what happened at Nepal just yesterday. Now, with the Himalayan region home to well over 25,000 glacial lakes, India too stands at grave risk. So how much of a risk is this, and should we be doing anything different in terms of the ongoing situation, and does some semblance of getting around the situation exist at this time and place? In fact, joining us now to discuss this further is Jayant Krishna, Senior Fellow, Center for Strategic and International Studies at in New Delhi, even as Dr. Satendra Singh, former Executive Director at NIDM, also joins us on the broadcast. Mr. Jayant Krishna, if I could start with you, sir. Firstly, thank you so much for joining us on the bulletin. What exactly? I beg your pardon. We will start with Dr. Satendra Singh first. Dr. Singh, if I could start with you. Could you give us some insight on what exactly triggered the incident in Nepal? It's been of a magnitude that we can't quite possibly imagine having occurred, something like we haven't quite seen in recent times at least. How dire was this, and what exactly triggered it in the first place? Dr. Satendra Singh.
At this juncture, we can't say anything confirmed, but there are many theories, and as per US Geological Survey, that is the most authentic institute about seismic activities and such type of activities, particularly, as you mentioned, glacial lake outburst flood globe. So that is one US Geological Survey has said, mentioned in its report that there was some avalanche type of thing was there, some what you call glacial portion break, and then it fell into a river system. So this caused a lot of devastation there, because when this portion of the glacial entered into the water, so it caused a lot of problem there. And then there was some flow of river was also blocked. Where the flow of the river was blocked, so there was some artificial lake was created. And when more water came, so this there was breach in this lake, and water started flowing with a very forceful manner. So this resulted in such type of devastation. This happened in our Uttarakhand disaster also 2013. That time I was director of National Institute of Disaster Management. We carried out a report, and that report I would like to show that this report very clearly mentioned that what were the causes and what were the impact and what were the recommendations made by National Institute of Disaster Management such type of disaster. So this is one of the theory that seems to be more logical.
Now let's, we are also now joined in by Jayant Krishna. He's a Senior Fellow, Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now, Mr. Krishna. Now, of course, we are going to discuss the devastation and the entire Himalayan tragedy. But, there are many things that can be done to prevent such a tragedy. And, some of the man-made things have also resulted into, impacting this already susceptible to some of these, tragedies, kind of a region, which already Himalayas is, with so many glacial lakes already present. At this point in time, there is also much discussion on the China's mega dam project in Medgog. In fact, help us understand what is the kind of, impact of such a project on an already fragile ecosystem that is there in Himalayas when it comes to these glaciers and lakes, and with all of this El Nino effect and climate change that the world is witnessing, and can this sort of a heavy engineering impact or have massive impact on the regions and the nations around this particular project?
See, as you rightly said that, one can, trace it to the Chinese dam and so on and so forth, that those data points are still not available. So it will be squarely wrong to start the blame game. But the fact is, global warming is something which is for real, right? There are extreme weather conditions, there are sea level changes, there are long-term shifts in global temperatures. It's happening everywhere, and the irony is. This change in the weather patterns is all caused by humans, right? I mean, and it's not new. It started almost 200 years ago, and in the last century and this century, these trends have intensified. Imagine the kind of greenhouse gas emission that happens, right? Gases like carbon dioxide, methane. You imagine the globe, wrapped with a blanket of these greenhouse gases, right? So unless people start taking, climate change more seriously, these kind of disasters will keep happening. It happened in Uttarakhand a few years ago. It has happened in Nepal. It was a glacier collapse, people say, and it caused a huge flow of ice, mud, and water. It created a wave in the Bhote Kosi River, and it damaged homes, roads, bridges, and even some hydel power plants and so on and so forth. I mean, there have been confirmed 300 deaths, and a few thousand people are missing. It's very unlikely, many of them would have survived. So I think unless the mankind takes global warming, warming very seriously, you have leaders like Trump who don't believe in global warming. He has reduced, he's walked out of the Paris Accord. I mean, the huge fund cut which has happened in the climate change program. So if the topmost leaders of world's wealthiest nations behave that way, I see a little hope for the mankind, and these kind of disasters, I hope and wish and pray can be prevented, but it's not going to happen because the situation is going to worsen, not only in Himalayas, but in seas and in everywhere, all across the world. I think this is the biggest emergency. Climate change is the biggest emergency the mankind faces today, but I see a complete lack of seriousness, especially among powers that be. I mean, we have summits and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, how nations agree to a huge reduction in the emission of greenhouse gases, how the carbon footprint their industry and their vehicles leave on the on this earth. I think it is a very, very serious. I think the world needs to awake, otherwise, and it happens in the US also. It's not just in India and Nepal. It happens all over the world. Huge climate disasters. So I think this has to be the agenda number one for the entire mankind, for the entire set of statesmen who rule the world. Otherwise, there is no hope for mankind.
Right. Mr. Jayant Krishna, I also want to look ahead a little bit and talk about what can possibly be done now that we're probably, for want of a better term, already in some semblance of this mess. But real-time data sharing, that is being mulled upon as one of the ways of getting around this. Do you feel there is enough of a mechanism or an infrastructure where, countries like India, China, and Nepal can actually have data shared between them? I mean, glaciers don't exactly recognize political boundaries. Do you feel there is potential of having real-time data sharing and a warning mechanism put in place? And this question is largely more relevant tonight because there are reports that Nepal did not, in fact, receive adequate early warning from China, given the fact that Chinese surveillance systems may have picked up on this before it actually happened. What is your take?
So absolutely, these kind of disasters, when they happen, they cut across countries, right? China, Nepal, India. The entire region is involved. But I completely agree with you. We have early warning systems available today, and data should be has to be shared across global boundaries, national boundaries, and so on and so forth. It is very, very important. Look at. Having learned that this has happened in Nepal, now Indian government has issued warnings to states like UP and Bihar, that there could be floods, there could be all kinds of situations, as an aftermath of this crisis itself. But I think, we are living in a digital age, and it's such a shame that the real-time data share on these kind of disasters, especially when it comes to early warning systems, signals, emanating those signals, and countries after countries not taking them seriously and not acting at all. So I think there has to be some international funding, through one of the UN agencies to create a database where on a real-time basis, these kind of early disaster early warning systems are channelized, and it's available for the entire mankind, all countries in the world, free of charge. I think that's an investment people will have to make. Otherwise, there'll be some information exchange here and there, formally, informally, but not as holistic, not as seamless as it needs to be, given the enormity of the situation we have seen in Nepal yesterday.
Mr. Singh, Dr. Singh over here, which in fact, lake, currently a glacial lake that poses the maximum amount of threat in today's day and age, according to you?
Well, that I can't say that which lake, but there are number of lakes are there in Himalayan regions. It's due to climate change. Now this melting is there. So at many places, but this needs a very scientific and scientific research so that we can find out and see that in the Sendai framework, which we are following, that is the for 2015 to 2030, that is international framework is there. So the first priority is identification or assessment of risk. What type of risk is there, where this risk is there, that is very, very important. So there is a need to carry out a very detailed survey of all the Himalayan regions, because Himalaya is ecologically and environment point of view is very, very sensitive mountain system. It is the youngest mountain in the world. So these type of things is very important. We should find out that what type of risk is there, where this risk is there. And second thing which I would like to say that in Himalaya, one disaster is not a single disaster. One disaster leads to other type of disasters also, like this flash flood is there. So flash flood is not a single disaster that is there. It will lead to other type of disasters. They will be there. There will maybe landslide. There may be collapse. There may be other type of disasters also. So this is a multifarious or complex type of situation is created, as we have seen in the other disasters also in Uttarakhand, 2013 also in Dharali also we have seen. Now we are seeing in Nepal also. So in the Himalayan region, whatever it is, not only that nature is there, but our development, so-called development, is also up to an extent responsible for that, because.
Right.
As I mentioned, Himalaya is very ecologically sensitive. So development has to be very sustainable, and it has taken care into the local situations.
Right. But Dr. Satendra Singh, just to, sorry to interrupt you there, but I think the most pertinent point that we are having by way of these discussions is simply the early warning systems, right? The fact is that if there was a bit of a heads up, hundreds of lives could have possibly been saved. In fact, that was a very crux of the question that I was asking Mr. Jayant Krishna as well. Let me ask you though, Dr. Satendra Singh, the visuals that we've been seeing from Nepal, we've been playing out some of those also on our screens through the evening. Given the velocity in which those water, rocks and the debris made their way down the valley, do tell us, how much of a warning time would have been enough? Are we talking hours, minutes, seconds, given the manner and the rapidness with which the whole incident occurred? How much of a warning do you think ought to have been in place, could possibly have been in place to, even if insignificantly so, prevent a few more lives from being lost? How much of a warning do you think could possibly be?
I'll give one example, like this cyclone is there. So in 1999, there was a super cyclone in Odisha, in which thousands of people killed, because that time we were not having sufficient or warning system was not there. But now we have very good early warning system for the cyclones. So same intensity or even more intensity and frequency disasters or cyclones are there, but life loss is very less. In 24 hours, 72 hours particularly, we get this information of the landfall, exact landfall, where it will be there. So this type of thing, unfortunately, we are not very expert in Himalayan regions. Himalayan regions still there is scope and potential to establish satellites at different locations, strategic locations, where these glaciers are there, where glacial lakes are being formed. So this type of information is provided, just it can be provided 72 hours before also, and that is more than sufficient time to evacuate the people, to early warn the people, to bring them at a safer place, as we have seen in our case, particularly in cyclones and other things. So we are evacuating thousands of people from such, danger zone and bringing them to shelter. So this type of thing, that early warning is very, very important. And second thing which I wanted to mention is that international operations. We have good collaborations with Nepal. I was Secretary Disaster Management in Government of Bihar. So that time we used to have a regular meeting with Nepal Meteorological Department, and they used to provide us all type of information: how much rainfall is there, which area it is there, what is the river level. So this type of information is very, very important. So similarly, if we can have this collaboration, Nepal would have this type of cooperation or collaboration with China.
Right.
So certainly this life loss would have been very, very negligible.
Right, right.
That is
Yes, absolutely, Dr. Singh. And thank you so much, Mr. Krishna, for joining us today on ET Now, sharing your inputs on the devastating flood and how it could be averted going further.